Hello everybody, it's 6 o'clock here in Durango, Colorado, so that means it's time for another virtual concert. And we'll see, I might be kind of tired tonight because I just did a local silent film performance this afternoon. It's been a struggle to get people to attend my silent movie shows here in Durango, but today went very well and I was pleased with the audience's reaction. I did a really fun train chase silent movie from 1926. So that's why I'm dressed up in my railroad vest tonight. This evening's virtual concert is going to be called a Festival Sampler. And I mentioned that I was going to do this last week. I'm going to kind of pretend that we're at a ragtime or a jazz festival. I have played many of each, and that's really how my career got started. When I was in my early teens, I started playing at ragtime and jazz festivals around the country. They're usually fairly small events, but they're so much fun. I want to tell you all about how that works, and we'll be happy to take requests as usual as I get going. And of course, I'll talk about the upcoming Durango Ragtime Festival as well, but I'll try not to make it too much of a commercial tonight. Let's start with a piece by the one and only Scott Joplin. His music is always heard at ragtime festivals, and that includes the Scott Joplin Festival in Sedalia, Missouri every year. Here's a rag which was written at least partially in Sedalia, and we know this because of interviews with Arthur Marshall, who was one of Joplin's piano students. This is the first piece that Joplin wrote after the Maple Leaf Rag in 1899. And he wrote it with Arthur Marshall. It's called the Swipesy Cakewalk. Here we go. Thank you very much. There's the Swipesy Cakewalk. Oh, nearly got 100 listeners on YouTube already. That's terrific. I'm hoping that by doing this every week again, I will get some new listeners. Boy, there's a request I don't know. Sorry about that on YouTube here. Well, I thought I'd play a piece for you which is important because it was written by a man named Theron C. Bennett, who was from southwest Missouri somewhere. Leo, let me know exactly the history on that. I know where it was. It was Pierce City, Missouri. And the reason that I mention him is because one of the first ragtime festivals when this music was revived in the 50s and 60s occurred in Pierce City, Missouri, because of this composer who lived there. And he wrote this piece in about 1903 for the St. Louis World's Fair. Thus it's called the St. Louis Tickle. He wrote it under fake names, Barney and Seymour. It was just a pseudonym that he came up with, but it became one of the big hits of the era. So now this ragtime festival, which was one of the first of its kind, was in Pierce City, Missouri, about 1960 or 61, I believe. The St. Louis Ragtimers played there, and I believe Ragtime Bob Darts did too. So in honor of that, here's the St. Louis Tickle by Theron Bennett. Thank you so much. St. Louis Tickle. Now, one of the neat things that happened when ragtime festivals first came about in the 1960s is that some of the pioneer composers of this music were still alive. And I know, for instance, Homer Denny played at the St. Louis Ragtime Festival on the Goldenrod Showboat. And also, when they had the first Ragtime Festival in 1974 in Sedalia, Missouri, U.B. Blake was there. And so I thought it would be appropriate to play a U.B. Blake tune for all of you now. Let's do his famous Charleston Rag, which he claimed he wrote when he was 16. I don't know that that's exactly true. The first piano roll of the piece was made in 1917, so we know it was composed by then, if not earlier. Here's the Charleston Rag. Thank you very much. As Eubie Blake would say, that's ragtime. Oh, well, already up over 120 people here on YouTube. That's terrific. Appreciate you all tuning in tonight. And if you enjoy this kind of music, I do accept virtual tips for these concerts. All you have to do is send in a tip on PayPal or Venmo. The information is pinned in the chat, and it should be in the postings on all three websites. It helps me make a living and keep this music alive. Every little bit helps, and that also helps me make the time for doing these virtual concerts. Do I know any songs but James Reese Europe? I'm afraid not by heart anyway. That's a very important ragtime era band leader who's been pretty much forgotten. Let me check the requests over here on Facebook. Would I play the Darktown Strutters Ball? Well, sure, that sounds like a plan. We'll do that next. Maybe I'll do both of the famous tunes by Shelton Brooks. This is a request from David on Facebook. Came in just about 4 minutes ago, so let's go ahead and do it. Oh, got a request over here on Twitch. Chestnut Street in the 90s. Okay, we can do that too if you'd like. Now let me see, which one should I do first? Let's do Chestnut Street in the 90s because that's an early style rag, and then I'll do the Shelton Brooks tunes. Chestnut Street in the 90s was a record that was made by Brun Campbell, who was one of Scott Joplin's piano students. He also lived and played, at least briefly, in Sedalia, Missouri, and I think this was his best piece. The first three themes, I believe, are based on a piece from the 1890s called Rags to Burn by Frank X. McFadden. Everybody remembers him. But it is meant to imitate the sounds of Chestnut Street in St. Louis. So here's Chestnut Street in the 90s. Thank you very much. Chestnut Street in the 90s. Well, during the original period, of course, for every instrumental piano rag that was written, there were hundreds, if not thousands, of ragtime songs. And one of the most important composers in that style, the ragtime era pop song, was Shelton Brooks, who was a black man born in Canada, actually, and he wrote several enormous hits during the ragtime years. Two of them are well remembered even today. Way back in 1910, he wrote Some of These Days, which became Sophie Tucker's theme song, and I have an arrangement of it which includes a little bit of Lee Sims' piano record. And actually, I stole both of these arrangements from Johnny Maddox. First, here's Some of These Days. I even know the verse to the song. I'll throw that in tonight, too. Thank you very much. Oh, greetings to Ken and Tawny. Nice to have you with us tonight, you two. Well, I promised the Darktown Strutters Ball a while back. I've got to get around to that. Remember, this was written in 1917, so it's not exactly politically correct anymore, but I don't care. So we're going to play the Darktown Strutters Ball, and with it another song from the same year called Jada, Jada Jada Jing Jing Jing. There's some really funny parodies on that. Maybe I'll tell you after I play it. Thank you very much. The Darktown Strutters Ball, and with it a song written by a man named Bob Carlton, who only ever had one hit. That's all you need. Jada, 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 jing, jing, jing. Jada, 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 jing, jing, jing. Love to hear those funny little ragtime melodies. It's so pleasing and amusing to me. Something like that. Jada, 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 jing, jing, jing. And then there's the parodies on it. Sitting in jail with my back to the wall. A blonde-headed woman was the cause of it all. Jada, 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 jing, jing, jing. Matches, matches, M-A-T-C-H-E-S. Matches, matches, M-A-T-C-H-E-S. You can light them on wood, you can light them on glass. I knew a gal who could light them on her matches, matches, M-A-T-C-H-E-S. And there's Sarah, Sarah. She wore a pair of BVDs. Sarah, Sarah, they hung way down below her knees. She wore them in the summer and she wore them in the fall. During in spring and autumn, la 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 la. She wore them, she tore them, she tore a pair of BVDs. And there's one about sipping on Schlitz. All day long she would sit and sip. And I'm not going to try and tell you that one because I could get it badly wrong. All right. Well, back to a little explanation of what's going to happen at this Ragtime Festival. And one of the things we always do is a silent movie with live music. And Frederick Hodges, I think, is one of the best silent film accompanists as a pianist. There's a lot of great theater organists who do it too. Theater organ really is even better for silent movies than piano, but Frederick has shared a lot of his silent movie mood music with me that I have learned to use as well. I'm still working on it. But here's one of my favorite rags that I love to play for silent movies. And let me show you. Here's the original copy of it from 1912. It's called A Bag of Rags. And as you can see, in those days, nobody really even knew what ragtime meant, even more than they do today. It really means ragged time, a ragged rhythm. But here we see a sack full of rags. Again, this was written in 1912. What am I doing? I've played this a blue million times. I don't need the sheet music. This was the theme song for the Keystone Cops, very early silent comedians. I think Fatty Arbuckle was with the Keystone Cops, at least early on, and this was the theme song, A Bag of Rags. Thank you so much. There's a bag of rags. Oh, Joe Sell, sure nice to have you with us tonight. Miss you, Joe. I have something I'm going to send you in the mail before too much longer when I get around to it. Well, at the Ragtime Festival here in Durango, the first weekend of April, I have asked Frederick Hodges to play for the silent movie. Because I'm producing this event myself, I don't want to have to create a score for a movie at the same time that I'm running an entire music festival. And Frederick's very good at it. He's already picked what movie he's going to do. He's going to play for Harold Lloyd in the movie called Speedy, one of his feature-length silent movies, and Babe Ruth is in it, believe it or not. That will be on Saturday during the Durango Ragtime Festival. One of the other musicians who's going to be coming here to Durango next spring is truly one of the great jazz drummers, primarily traditional jazz, but this guy can do everything. And I'm talking about Danny Coots, who lives in Nashville. And I love playing with Danny. He's so good. When he's playing the drums, if you skip a beat, he just skips it right along with you. He's that good. And Danny's great uncle, which I believe is the closest relation that he's explained to me. His great uncle was the famous songwriter J. Fred Coots, who wrote a little tune you might know called Santa Claus is Coming to Town. And he wrote many other standards. So I thought, in honor of the festival, I'd play a few of the J. Fred Coots songs for you tonight. And the first one, this dates from 1928, was recorded by the Coon Sanders Nighthawks Orchestra, one of my favorite bands of the 20s, one of the most legendary bands of the whole period, and I'm sure many others. This is a delightful little ditty called Here Comes My Ball and Chain by J. Fred Coots. My ball and chain. Thank you so much. Well, now another famous J. Fred Coots song written in 1931, and it was covered again in the 1950s by many famous artists, and it became a hit all over again, especially by Pat Boone. This is Love Letters in the Sand, and I even know the verse to the song. J. Fred Coots wrote Love Letters in the Sand with, I think the lyricists were British, Charles and Nick Kinney. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. And I have a copy of the song, the original edition, autographed by Nick Kinney for Glenn Rowell, who was the radio star of the 1920s and 30s. I inherited that music from Johnny Maddox, who worked with Glenn. And so I made a medley out of this song. It's on the CD I did with Danny Coots on drums. I made a medley of this song with another one by Glenn Rowell and J. Fred Coots. They wrote this together. It's called In the Doorway Where We Used to Kiss Goodnight. And so this is my arrangement of Love Letters in the Sand. And I don't know whether In the Doorway, whether the music was ever even published, but I have the manuscript for it. Again, here's a couple J. Fred Coots songs. Love Letters in the Sand and In the Doorway. so much. Love Letters in the Sand. Yeah, Pat Boone revived that in 1957. I wrote Pat a letter because he and Johnny Maddox knew each other a little bit back in the 50s. In fact, Johnny told me that he played the piano for Pat Boone's very first show when he was in high school. Pat Boone was from Nashville. And so I got a real nice letter from Pat, and I had him autograph the music to Love Letters in the Sand for me. A number of artists did that on Dot Records. It could be because Johnny recorded it first. I'm not sure. You know, he would have known the music of that period. So Johnny did it on Dot Records. Pat Boone did it on Dot Records. And so did the country singer Mac Wiseman, who I got to meet in Nashville, who was really great. Nice guy and very special and unusual voice. Let's see. Now let's see. Give me some requests, everybody. I'll wait just a minute to see if some requests come in on the chat. You know, there's a little bit of a delay on my end, and I'll check all three websites and, you know, play something else for you. Oh, hi to my cousin Lois in Oklahoma. Great to have you with us again tonight. Oh, I see someone commenting about the theater organ music. Yes, I have been to Organ Stop Pizza in Arizona. It's really terrific. You know, I think another classic rag might be a good idea. I see a request here for Ragtime Nightingale. Oh boy, here's a bunch of them. Oh, okay, I'll do the Black Bottom in a minute. Wow. Got a bunch of them. The requests are coming so fast I can't do it. I also saw one for Bill Bailey. That's from Fred and Karen. Okay, I'll try and do as many of these as I can get to. Let's do the classic rag first. Nice to play a slow one once in a while. This is the gorgeous Ragtime Nightingale by Joseph Lamb. The left hand is based in part on Chopin's Revolutionary Etude. And I think he also borrowed some figures from Ethelbert Nevin's Nightingale Song. Nevin was a composer of like parlor piano music, salon music in the early 1900s. But Lamb turned it into a rag. Here's Ragtime Nightingale. so much. Ragtime Nightingale. Okay, I'm going to go back and play that request from Fred and Karen Youngkins. And it's appropriate for me to do a railroad song tonight, considering how I'm dressed. This was written about a real man who worked on the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad in Jackson, Michigan, way back in 1902. I was not around in those days, but everyone that you can imagine has recorded this song in the last 120 years. It's called Bill Bailey, Won't You Please Come Home? Won't you please come home? Thank you very much. Gosh, I just realized we're up to 155 watching on YouTube tonight. That's great. That's the most I've had in quite a while. That's what I was hoping by doing this every week. Again, that would happen. Yes, I am going to play a piano roll. I saw a request on YouTube a little bit ago for a tune that I want to play for you because it kind of relates to the piano roll. One of the things that I think I enjoy the most when you go to a ragtime and jazz festival is they do seminars about the music. Sometimes there's workshops where a musician will critique another person's performance. There'll be piano students that play or something. But what I love the most, I think, are the historical seminars about the music. You know, the ragtime era was so long ago. There's no one alive that can remember it. So I love the seminars. And at my festival, first weekend of April here in Durango, Colorado, Frederick Hodges will be doing a seminar called The History of Tin Pan Alley. That was the music publishing business. And then the second seminar I'm going to do myself. And what I'm planning, it's possible I could change my mind, but I don't think so. What I'm planning to do is I'm going to show historic film clips of ragtime composers. The seminar will just be called Ragtime Composers on Film, and that includes everyone from James P. Johnson and Zez Confrey to Shelton Brooks. I played his music tonight, and this composer, whose name was Joe Jordan. and he wrote two enormous hits. That Teasing Rag in 1909, and the next year, 1910, Lovey Joe, which is the song that made Fanny Brice famous. And I saw a request for that Teasing Rag, so let's do that. The film of Joe Jordan is already on my YouTube channel, believe it or not. If you have the desire to watch such things, they're easy enough to find these days, but I'll be doing a lot of historical commentary and narration about the film clips that will hopefully make it more interesting for general audiences. And so here now we're going to do two tunes by Joe Jordan, one of my favorite composers. He was an African-American pianist who was born in Cincinnati, Ohio in the 1880s. He played in St. Louis at Tom Turpin's Rosebud Saloon, and then moved to Chicago, which was an extremely important town in the early jazz era. And then later in his life, he retired to Tacoma, Washington. He was out there in the Army, I believe, and decided that Tacoma, Washington was so beautiful that he didn't want to leave. I think he was like a music director or band leader or something in the Army. Anyway, here is his big hit from 1909, recorded by Blossom Seeley, among many others over the years. This is That Teasing Rag. Thank you very much. That Teasing Rag. Well, I'm now going to play the piano roll for you. And this is a piece by Joe Jordan. I pulled this out, thinking about what I could do to represent the seminars at the music festival. And this is a rare rag. I'd give anything in the world to find an original copy of this. Janice Cleary had one. It went to Mississippi State University. This is called the Pecan Rag, 1904. And it's named after the Pecan Theater in Chicago, where Joe Jordan was the musical director. It was the first black-owned and operated theater in the country. It was completely run by African Americans. And it's a fun rag. The original music you may have seen on my Facebook post features an incredible photo of the inside of the Pecan Theater. But here now is the Pecan rag from 1904 on a 1996 piano roll, transcribed and played by John Farrell, who made many, many hot piano rolls of early jazz music and so forth. So there's a little bit of improvisation in this. I guess it's the trio, the final theme of Pecan Rag was later used as one of Jordan's ragtime era song hits called Sweetie Dear. But this is the original, Pecan Rag, played now on piano roll by John Farrell on my 1913 Apollo player pianos. Here we go. Pecan rag. You don't hear that every day. Pecan is spelled P-E-K-I-N. No, not pecan. Well, I feel like tonight's concert is going fast. That's too bad. I'm enjoying it. It's after 7 o'clock now already here in Durango, Colorado. And if you're enjoying the music, if you want to help me make a living at this, small tip is much appreciated. There's both PayPal and Venmo information in the chat and the postings on all three websites. And if you don't trust PayPal, I have a P.O. box on my website for checks as well. And I can now announce that the tickets for the Durango Ragtime and Early Jazz Festival will go on sale November 19th. They are working to get this on the website for the Durango Arts Center. That's where you'll be able to find more information about it as time goes on. And the hotel room packages are already available, if you didn't know, for the first weekend of April 2025. One of the best ways to support the festival would be to also buy hotel rooms right there at the Strater Hotel in downtown Durango. And the Durango Arts Center is only 2 blocks away, so please come help support my personal venture here where I produce this entire music festival by myself. We'll see how it goes. And I can't decide if I should release the flyers for the festival yet or not on social media and so forth, because it says tickets are for sale. Technically, tickets are not going to be available until November 19th. So I may wait until then to release the flyers. I suppose that would be the right thing to do, but very excited to have many of you coming here. Hopefully I'll get to meet some of my virtual concert listeners that I have yet to meet in person. I hope that happens. Oh, that's a high compliment. Someone on YouTube just said, "My generation had Max Morath. I'm glad we have Adam Swanson now." That is a high compliment. Thank you very much. Yes, the piano's 1913. That's right. This is a lovely instrument. Since I don't have space for a grand piano in my house, don't have space and can't afford it, I'm very happy with this instrument. Honestly, I think the Melville Clark upright pianos are as good or better, honestly better in many ways than the Steinway upright pianos. I'm normally a Steinway man, but their forte seems to have been grand pianos, not their uprights as much. Now, one of the musicians who's coming to Durango for the first time next spring in April is a fantastic ragtime and hop, stride, and jazz pianist named Jeff Barnhart, who will be coming all the way from Mystic, Connecticut. And so here now is one of the tunes that I love to play as duets with Jeff Barnhart as a duet. We do many duets together. And in fact, I'm going to make sure that there are 2 pianos on stage for my festival so that we can do things like this. This is a tune written and recorded in 1929 by a black pianist named Alex Hill. It's called "Stompin' 'Em Down." Thank you very much. Stomping them down. So there's a little something about what's going to happen at the festival. There'll be a lot of piano duets, and we'll have Danny Coots playing drums, and we'll have Don Neely playing his clarinet and saxophone and so forth as well. So might have a little bit of a jazz band going as well. You never know what's going to happen. Well, in the second half of tonight's concert, I'm going to definitely stray more into the early jazz field. And I saw a request, I think the fellow's name was Mark. He wanted to hear a tune called The Black Bottom, which was one of the big dance hits of the Roaring '20s. And I play Black Bottom as part of a medley with two other songs from the same Broadway show, which was called George White's Scandals. It was a sort of a Broadway review, almost like the Ziegfeld Follies, and this was George White's Scandals of 1926. I'm going to play Birth of the Blues, and then a tune called Lucky Day, and finally the Black Bottom, complete with the original verse to the tune. Warren says on Facebook, "Am interested in the festival in April. More information. You can call the Strater Hotel now and reserve hotel rooms in the Ragtime Festival block. They've reduced the hotel rate, by the way, and there will be tickets for sale on the Durango Arts Center website in a few days, November 19th. Here's the tunes from George White's Scandals of 1926. Thank you very much. Those are all songs from the George White Scandals of 1926, Birth of the Blues, It's My Lucky Day, and Black Bottom. I hope the fellow that requested that got to hear it. I see someone commenting here on YouTube from near Sydney, Australia, 160 kilometers from Sydney. Well, you know, I played in Australia and flew into Sydney, and of course I loved the trip, and it wasn't that complicated. I flew from Durango to LA and then from LA directly to Sydney. Once you get to LA, it's only, you know, a couple hours to Durango. I'm afraid I don't know Great Crush Collision March. I've never played that. I do love it, but let's see. Got a few things on my list that I want to be sure and get to. How many are left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got time for another request or two. Oh my goodness, got someone listening in Tokyo, Japan. Thanks for joining us tonight. Whew. It'd be nice to play a slow one. Well, I've already played some Scott Joplin tonight. That might be a good idea there, Kelly. Let's do my medley of Johnny Green songs. I want to do more early jazz now in the second half of the concert. And so I have a medley of 3 songs all written by Johnny Green, John W. Green. And he wrote a lot of really wonderful standards, and then later became a very important musical director at MGM for musical movies. But his most famous tune, written in 1935, I believe, was Body and Soul. So we'll play that first, and then one of his earlier hits, 1928, called Coquette, and then wind up with a great ballad from the 30s called Out of Nowhere, or You Came to Me from Out of Nowhere. And that's a real terrific song that was recorded by many of the famed artists of the period, like Bing Crosby and I think even Donald Novis, for instance. Here's my Johnny Green medley. Thank you very much. All songs by the great Johnny Green. Oh my, thank you very much, folks. Appreciate the kind words. Well, I want to play a song tonight in honor of a friend of mine that passed away just a couple of days ago. He was one of my best friends here in Durango, and he was an amazing man. He worked for the Santa Fe Railroad for about 30 years, Andy Size, and he had incredible stories. You know, he was 94, by the way, and so he remembered a very different era, and he knew all these old-fashioned jokes that everybody loved. And he and his wife, just before he died, they just celebrated their 75th wedding anniversary. So he really went out in style, and he owned a 7.5-inch gauge miniature railroad here on the north side of Durango. That was a lot of fun. And thankfully it was sold to another man who has trains, so the little railroad will survive. But anyhow, Andy loved good music too. In fact, he was old enough, he had seen people like Tommy Dorsey in person. Andy and Lucille met Lawrence Welk. Andy did a model train layout for the Steve Allen show, believe it or not. So in honor of Andy, who worked as a police officer on the Santa Fe Railroad, let's do On the Atchison, Topeka, and the Santa Fe. Here it is. I pulled out the original sheet music yesterday, and I was surprised to see that I had some wrong chords and so forth in my previous performances. So we're going to fix that tonight. Yeah, for sure. And without further ado, here's On the Atchison, Topeka, and the Santa Fe. Thank you very much. One more train song for the night. Yeah, up to 160 listeners on YouTube. That's terrific. If somebody do a total count, I'd appreciate that. Carl usually does that for me. Yeah, the Facebook viewership is down. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe on all three websites. If you do that, I appreciate it. It helps with the algorithms. You know, I'm hoping that more and more people will find my concerts, and I can continue doing this. Didn't Judy Garland sing this in the Harvey Girls? Well, the song was written for the Harvey Girls. You know what's interesting is I watched the film clip the other day, and there's a verse to the song that's not in the original sheet music. That happened occasionally, but I'm surprised the verse to such a famous song is not included in the sheet music. And the same is true of Chattanooga Choo Choo. I looked for the verse to that song, and it's not there. What happened, you know, as decades went by throughout the 20th century, popular music became more and more dumbed down, and fewer people took piano lessons. So the music had to be simplified, and that's the case with these songs, I imagine. And I guess I just have to learn the verses by ear. I don't know. Yeah. Next best thing to a live festival. Well, I hope so, Jim. And, you know, we may do some events with the Durango and Silverton Railroad as well. I was talking to the manager this week, and at the very least, I think they may offer a small discount on a train ticket if you buy a Ragtime Festival pass. And I'm planning to put an upright piano on the train station platform on the first day of the festival. And then there will be free music for all the hundreds of people that get off the train. And we'll put up a big poster for the Ragtime and Jazz Festival. And so that will hopefully attract more people to the event. One of the things that happens at these festivals that I really love are the after-hours parties. And of course, at my event next year, the after-hours will be in the Diamond Bell Saloon. And well, I'll talk about that more in just a minute, but there's also many people who perform at these events, like Martin Spitznagel, who will be performing in April of next year, who are wonderful composers of modern-day ragtime music. So I thought I'd play a couple of modern-day rags to close out tonight's concert. And in fact, I'm going to humbly submit two of my own. And I'm doing this partly because I had the sheet music printed, and I'd love to sell a few and get rid of the sheet music. These are my two most recent compositions. Here's the first one, which I wrote with a young pianist from New York named Andrew Sachs. And it's kind of like a novelty piano solo. Andrew wrote the first theme, and I wrote the rest of the piece. I haven't played my own piece here in a while, so I'm going to have to look at the sheet music. Pretty sure I remember it all. Let's see. Okay, here it goes. This is called Fingerwinks, a cute little title in the style of novelty piano music. Fingerwinks. you very much. Fingerwinks. And I included that off-key ending on purpose. This is something they did in the 20s. And now, the first prize winner at the 2023 New Rag Contest at Ole Miss University in Oxford, Mississippi. This is a piece that I wrote with Paul Orsi, who's a former Disneyland piano player, and Tom Lakeland, a buddy of mine from England. And since Tom's from England, it's called the Transatlantic Rag. This is more of a traditional rag than a novelty piano solo, but here we go, the Transatlantic Rag. Thank you very much. Transatlantic Rag, written by 3 different guys. Okay, well, we're nearing the end of the program. I want to be sure and thank you all so much for listening tonight, as always. I appreciate those virtual tips. I'm certainly trying to do something with my life in this music, and that includes producing the Durango Ragtime and Early Jazz Festival. I'm grateful to the other festivals where I got my start as a musician, and it really is an unusual little world unto itself, a community of incredible musicians. For those of you that have never attended such an event, some of the names that I have mentioned are very special people and incredible musicians, and I hope you will join me here next spring in April. If not, I'll see some of you at other events. I'm sure going to miss the West Coast Ragtime Festival this year. And as I said, one of my favorite things at these festivals are the after-hours parties, because that's where you get to hear lots of piano duets and also new rags like the ones that I just played for you. And probably my favorite person to play with at the Ragtime Festival after hours has always been Tom Breyer. And he and I would, when I was a teenager, he and I would stay up till 3 or 4 in the morning playing piano duets. And I'm so grateful for that experience I had with him. So let's close this evening's concert with one of the modern rags by Tom Breyer. And this one is called Boulder Dash. Thank you so much. That's Boulder Dash by Tom Breyer, one of the stars of the Ragtime Festival world. Well, thank you all so much for listening tonight. I do have another virtual concert planned for next Sunday. I saw some requests even tonight for Fats Waller's music, and had a request for that by email. So what I'm going to do is a night of stride piano. I have done concerts called Classic Jazz, but I don't think I have yet to do a virtual concert with the term stride piano in the title. So I think it's about time I did that, and I can devote a lot of the concert to Fats Waller's music, James P. Johnson's music, Willie the Lion Smith, and more. So please join me next Sunday night, and I'll play another concert for you. Thank you all so much for listening. I appreciate your requests and your tips and your loyalty and support. So see you next Sunday night for an evening of stride piano. Good night for now.